All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here live with Dennis Moody out in Joshua Tweet. Joshua, Joshua
Joshua
Tree,
Tree. At least it was this morning.
right? Okay. So, I follow you online and your post of the pictures, and the one that I thought was really funny, how something about how many the pictures I'm taking are they look the same every night. It's like the same.
Yeah, no, they're all different places, but at Joshua Tree is a Joshua Tree. Now, after 8 years of having a house out here, I've seen plenty of Joshua trees, and it's still beautiful. I have one in my backyard, one in my front yard, but I just don't want to bore people. Oh, another tree. So that's why I put that up there. And by the way, I don't live out here full time. I'm in LA. I don't want people to think I moved away and I'm not available anymore. And it's happened where people think I'm just gone and unavailable. That's not true. I have my studio in downtown LA and it's there and ready to work when we can get back to work. In the meantime, I'm doing some stuff out here, just
Well,
to clarify.
well, that's good to know. And if I had a house and had to kind of shelter in place, I would like there. That's exactly where I would go.
Pretty nice out here, let me tell
Right.
you. Yes, definitely.
All right. So now, just a quick refresher. I believe I met you at Catalina Jazz Club maybe a dozen years ago or so, and I think Nils Johnson introduced us. Bass player,
Yes,
and
good
then
friend of mine.
yeah. So what I've noticed just in online, are being Facebook friends and everything. Anybody that I know, and more. So the first question I want to ask you, and then I want to get into another brief question is. One of my favorite records, and I know you work at Catalina Jazz Club a lot and get to work with Dave Weckl,
Mhm.
and he recorded a live album there. Did you record that for him at the club?
Was it Dave Weckl band?
Un, un,
Very plugged in,
yes,
live and very plugged in. We
yes.
did that at the old Catalinas,
Oh,
not the new one, the one that was on Cahuenga across from Babyface's building. Used to
oh.
be Solar Records,
Mm.
and we recorded 5 nights of that, and we recorded everything. And he went through and took the best takes, and then he mixed it. But yes, I did record that for him.
Man, I mean that is Gary Meek and
Mhm.
Tom Kennedy, Jay Oliver, and Dave Weckl.
That
What?
was Steve Weingart
Oh,
back then.
Steve Weingart. Right. Okay, sorry. Thank you for clarifying.
No, it's okay.
But Jay did a lot of the stuff. So,
Yeah,
but
yes, he did.
still, that record was, oh my God, I listened over and over and over to that
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's a
So,
good.
um, now, did you started off playing drums? Now, I just want to get a little bit of background. Uh, I watched on your introduction on your website. By the way, I have dennismoody.com up here in case anybody wants to look. And you started off playing drums.
Right.
And what got you interested in doing sound, and when did you make the transition?
Uh, well, I started drums when I was about 6, and my grandma used to take my brother and I to the LA Philharmonic, and I was big into classical music. I wanted to be a conductor, classical music, and learn about that, and which encompasses more than just drums. You have to know a little about every instrument and a lot about music. Then the Beatles came, and of course, we got sucked in by that. A little late for me. We actually saw them at Dodger Stadium a couple of years after that, but my dad took us. But I wanted to be a Ringo style drummer, but I was bored of rock music was a little boring for me, and we started listening to jazz. Some of the guys down the street were big jazz heads, and my dad always played that kind of music around too. So around the house. So we got into Mahavishnu Orchestra, Miles Davis, Jack Johnson, that awesome record, John McLaughlin,
Right.
and Lenny White and those people. And so I went to see Mahavishnu Orchestra at Santa Monica Civic Front Row Center. Got my ticket early, best seat, best seat that 650 could buy back then. Opening band was Journey before Steve Perry and
Whoa.
Steve Smith. Ainsley Dunbar was in it. They were a jazz fusion band before. So I'm sitting there watching Billy Cobham, just going, "That's ridiculous. I can't do that." And I was laughing. I said, "I don't want to do that. I want to play like Ringo. I 4/4, 5/4, maybe some country music, 3/4 stuff." But I just didn't have the interest in getting that sophisticated with the playing. But I always wanted to make records, and we should write songs and play them in our little band that my brothers and the neighbor kids had. And after I saw that, I go, I don't want to do that. But I was watching the guy at the soundboard on the way out. Wow, that's cool. I'd love to do something like that. And if I want to work making records, producing, I better learn how to work in a studio. So my intention was to be a producer, which I've done quite a bit of.
Mm-hmm.
But to get my foot in the door, I go, I have to learn how to work in a studio and how to work all the stuff, how it works. So that's how I got into it.
It, so, where did you get your first job? How did you go about getting the job? Was it live sound or studio?
No, it was studio.
Mhm.
It was, I knocked on doors. My mom let me borrow the Pinto every was it a Pinto or a Toyota? We had a Toyota Corolla. She let me borrow it every Friday. I'd go up and pass out resumes, which wasn't much when you're 20 and you don't have
Yeah.
any experience. And I went everywhere. They had a thing back then called that Audio Rents put out called the Studio Menu. Do you remember that from
Mm.
LA? It's a
Uh-uh.
list of all the recording studios, phone number, address. So I went through the whole thing and I scratched off one. I don't want to work there, but I loved looking in the window at Paramount because they had
Mm.
pictures of Frank Zappa up there and George Duke and John Ponte and all those people I loved. Oh, I love that. I want to work here. I want to work here. So finally, a year goes by. I got offered 3 jobs in the same day, and I go, Paramount. And they were remodeling the studio at the time. And the owner, who I still talk to this day, that was a long time ago,
Yeah.
said, "Do you know how to use a broom?" And I go, "Of course I can use a broom." He goes, "Good, because we're remodeling the studio. We need people to clean up after the construction workers." And I'm going, foot in the door.
Right.
And I'm going to work my butt off and say, okay, they're going to need someone to man that room, to be the assistant in that room. So I'm going to get that gig. I'm going to work. I'm going to sleep here. I'm going to eat here. I'm going to be here 24/7. And so that's how I got started.
So you started pushing a broom, and
Yep.
and then it actually led to being able to be an assistant in a room or
Well, it gets better. That story, it wasn't the end of that. The
okay. Yeah.
family of the owner took me out to dinner, his dad and his mom and a couple of the siblings. And we went to the Italian place on the corner. And they said, "Dennis, we really love what you're doing. You're so dedicated. But we got to let you know there is no job here. This guy over here, Mike, it's his room. He's been working with us for about 2 years now. And we're remodeling this room. And that's going to be his room. So if you're working hard for that reason, we don't want to disappoint you, but it's not going to happen." And so I said, "Okay, fine, fine." And I went home and I said, "They're crazy. I'm going to work even harder." I made it so hard for them to say, they finally said, "Okay, you got the gig." And the guy, Mike, he actually thanked me because he got on unemployment and I got the gig. So
Whoa.
I was still doing a little gopher work, but I was also assisting in that room.
And
Yeah.
so um uh the board was just a regular analog board in those days, and
Spectrasonics, an old Spectrasonics, a Stevens 16 track. I remember my first session very well too. It was,
and who was it?
yeah, it was a Diana Ross song called "Love Hangover," which is a classic, and it had James Jameson on bass, Sonny Burke on keys. This was before John Barnes came into that picture. James Gadson on drums, who's still a friend of mine.
Wow.
Eddie Bongo Brown. I don't remember the guitarists back then. I just remember Hal Davis was the engineer and was the producer. Cy Mitchell was the engineer, and I remember I go, "Hi, Cy, it's my first session in this room. What do you want me to do?" And he gave me a list. Plug these mics in. He goes, "They drink a lot here. These people, they drink a lot. So, but they don't let me drink. So every time you see my cup is empty and you're pouring drinks out for people, put a little in my cup, but don't let them see you." That's what I said. It was Love Hangover.
Oh,
And I have two gold records for that on my studio wall as assistant engineer.
wow. So, um, the other than when you were doing that though, did you learn how to? Was that the start of learning the placement of mics and everything? Was he having you place mics and all that sort of thing?
He'd go and check them, but he'd have me plug them in. But there were two studios at that time at Paramount, and upstairs room was Johnny Guitar Watson was working with Kerry McNabb, who is a phenomenal engineer, but he got sick of the business and he quit working when he's probably 30. He just said, "I can't take this crap anymore. I hate this business. It ruins my life. I don't have any time. I don't need it." So he retired and got into a business with his father. But he had done all the Zappa records, Overnight Sensation, Apostrophe, um, I don't know, a bunch of Zappa records. He did Johnny Guitar Watson records. He did George Duke records.
Gee,
And he said, "I don't work with an assistant, but you're welcome to come in after and, sit, just be quiet and don't talk to anybody. If they ask you questions, just be short, don't talk, just be here and be invisible." So I used to, after I'd work all day, I'd start at 9 in the morning and do all my day work, my gopher work, or help on a session down there. The Motown sessions were usually from 10 till 2, union calls. And then I'd go and help. After I got off, I'd go up and work with Kerry. And I got to meet George Duke and work with him. Flora Purim, Airto, all those great jazz people.
yeah.
So I sang out with Kerry and I had learned so much from him. And Larry Hirsch, another fantastic engineer, did John Luke Ponte, Joni Mitchell,
Mhm.
T-Bone Burnett. He was his engineer, and I learned so much from watching those two guys in a positive way. And from Cy, bless him, rest his soul, R.I.P. But I used to see, wow, it doesn't really work when you do it that way. Let me try this, and so I've developed my own style. So
Yeah. So, uh, give me just out of curiosity. So give me an example for last night. I was talking to a sax player who said, when I'm really want a good recording of my sax, I would like three microphones, one by the mouthpiece, one in the middle of the horn, and one by the bell.
one
And I
for each year.
yeah, one for each ear. Yeah, right. No, but I only do live sound. It's all I've ever really wanted to do. But are those the kinds of things that you would learn, or you would watch them? Put a mic on a drum a certain way, and then they
Yes.
do some of your own experimenting though after that. And pretty much there's kind of a tried and true way for miking drums. But is there anything that stands out that you learned then that still holds through today that people wouldn't know about?
Well, in my opinion, and everybody has their opinion, especially in ours, and usually people's ideas are always better than yours because everybody knows better than everyone else. As you know, being a live
Right,
sound engineer, everybody knows more than you, or they have a friend who does.
right.
Is less is more. And there's a great picture I saw on Facebook today of a U-47 in the middle of a kit and an old Electro Voice. Uh, uh,
Is
what were those old square ones? The D12
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
on the kick drum, jazz. I don't know who the artist was. I wasn't sure who it was. And I'm just going, that's the sound, you don't need all those mics. And I see people, what do you use for an inside and an outside kick mic? I don't. I use one on the outside and I use one snare mic. I don't need a bottom mic unless the snare is, 12 inches deep, a marching drum or something. And I'll put a bottom one on, but
Right,
you don't need it.
right. Well, and that actually, I kind of want to hear more of your other background stories, but this also is things that I always want to talk to guys about, especially like you, is as a live sound guy. I never understood why to even put a bottom snare mic on for live sound. And what is the purpose even on a studio, especially if it's like a piccolo drum? I mean,
Yeah, I don't get it either. But some people swear by it. And I saw it in old days. Larry Hirsch used to do that. And he was one of the greatest engineers I worked with.
hmm,
Between him and Kerry, I just learned so much. And I saw what Larry did, and it worked. It
mm,
worked for him the way he did it. And he didn't use 57 on snare. He used the 451 on the top and the bottom. And he had a 90-degree angle. Sorry, I can't do
oh,
that from how I'm
yeah,
sitting. And
yeah, yeah,
sounds he got were phenomenal. So,
yeah,
therefore, there is no really wrong way or right way, but the more mics you throw out there, the more issues you have with phase and
right,
cancellation and leakage. And
yeah.
you put the overheads up too high. I'll tell you a story about that later, how I got that GAD record.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's move on because I think that when we get to all of the mic techniques and stuff, there may be people watch that want to ask a question, and I'll put my
Sure.
phone number up. But so you went on and you did that for a number of years, but I kind of want to kind of give me an overview because I want to get to more recent and the Steve Gadd and the Dave Weckl and all of that stuff because I'm a drummer. The
Okay.
the fact is you're doing those kinds of gigs and recording them and the tours and stuff you do is phenomenal. So you how long did you work at Paramount then?
10 years I was there until they closed down. They went private, rented it out to a production company doing TV work, and then they finally sold it 2 years later. So I was there till 1985,
85.
and
And
I went freelance about the last 2 years. 83 on, I started working at other places.
so have you been kind of a freelance recording studio engineer since then? Uh,
Yes,
and then you built your own studio.
I've had two studios, and one
Okay.
you know about is called Sonora Recorders over on Los Feliz. I put that place together
Mhm.
in 1990. And the second I signed the lease, and then I opened the paper at dinner and says, recession official starting today. And I go, oh, shoot, I'm screwed. And the next 3 years, I was just, oh my God, I was 7 days a week from, 8 in the morning till midnight. My girlfriend at the time was an accountant. And she goes, what the heck are you doing? This is insane.
Mm.
She'd go over, fix my books for me and get everything organized. She goes, this is the dumbest thing. So finally, I said, I got to get out of this. And I sold it to a really great friend of mine, Richard Barron. He has had it since and it's still going in quite
Wow.
a nice little room. But the room I have now, I got out of kind of accident. I didn't want the studio, but it
Mm.
accidentally happened. We were looking for a small space to start because I was working in my walk-in closet, in my little apartment on Silver Lake, and have the headphones on. I'd look back and there'd be five people with their heads through the door, trying to watch. And I said, I got to get a space. So we got a space, and the guy I got it with wasn't financially secure. And I found that out about a month in. And I said, either you go off this lease or I'm going to call it quits and just take a loss because we had already started remodeling and stuff. And we're going to split it into two. I wanted to buy a building, and back then, 2001 would have been a great time, but
Mm.
slowly just started building up this studio, and I still have it today.
Yeah.
It's a great little space. It's great. I
When
really enjoy it there.
when did you now you've always done studio. When did you start doing live sound and gigs like Catalina Jazz Club and some of those, and how did those come about?
That's funny. I got, well, the first person I met when I was working at Paramount, probably the third day I was there, was Flora Parim and Ayrto Morera. And Flora, she was quite known then, especially because she's had some legal troubles. I don't know if
Mm,
you remember, I won't repeat them, but she had something, substances.
mm,
And so she was on limited release. She'd go teach classes at Harbor College, and Orrin Keepnews would pick her up at the Terminal Island and drive her to Harbor College, and she'd come up one day a week and do vocals for this record, and then he'd bring her and drop her off at the federal prison down in
Whoa.
Terminal Island. So she's the first person I met, and her and Ayrton became really great friends of mine over the next couple of years, and I haven't seen them in a long time. But she said, "You can do our sound on our tour. We're doing a little." I'm like, "Oh, this is great! This is great! I always wanted to do that. It sounds it's one of the passions I had, but I had never done it. I did a little local bands, but nothing really." So we're at a rehearsal once, and this guy comes in, and Ayrton's secretary, "Oh, this is Steve. This is his secretary's boyfriend." And Flora goes, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you. What do you do?" "I'm a sound engineer." "Oh, really? What are you doing?" "Nothing. I just finished a tour with Ambrosia, and I'm looking for a new tour." And I saw her eyes light up. And I go, "Oh, darn, I'm screwed." And so she goes, the next day she called and said, "Dennis, I'm really sorry, but this guy's available. He's
Oh,
family." So I go back to the studio at Paramount, and Johnny Guitar Watson was doing his "Ain't That a Bitch" record, and I would hang out in the evenings with them. And Johnny goes, "So you getting excited about your tour, Den?" And I go, "Nah, it's off. They had to get someone else." And he goes, "You can come on tour with me."
whoa.
"Really? Okay." So this is 1977. So I'm on tour with Johnny Guitar Watson, where he had two records that went gold in 3 months: "Ain't That a Bitch" and "Real Mother for You," which Carrie McNabb did. And I was helping. I was helping a little on those, actually, a lot. But so we go out and we're doing 4 or 5 thousand seaters. He's headlining. He's really famous then and
Yeah.
popular. And this tour manager goes, "Take your itinerary and tear it up." And we go, "What's going on?" They go, "Tomorrow we're opening up for the OJs. We're playing at Madison Square Garden." And I go, "Oh, okay. This is going to be fun. I never did this." So I'm sitting there. I'm 22 years old, mixing Madison Square Garden and the Omni in Atlanta and Oakland Coliseum and all these. The Forum I probably did every weekend for months. I probably mixed that place. So
Wow.
that's how I started, was at those big 20,000
Wait,
seater.
wait, I got to ask you though. So
Sure.
you're 22. You're off onto the Madison Square Garden, and they threw you in front of a mixing board. Were you doing monitors? Were you
No,
doing
front of house.
front of house? Were you
I've never done monitors. I've only done front
okay?
of house.
So you were the only guy front of house, and you were sitting there. What?
Basically pushing faders. So this is how it worked back then. They had a 24 channel board with rotary pots at that
Oh,
time. It was rotary pots. And it
yeah,
was Red Wheeler sound from Atlanta, Georgia. And I don't even know if they're still around. They weren't big.
yeah.
And I told the guy, "Look, I'm really new at this. Don't worry, we got your back. That's what we're here for." So he'd set up the board for me from the notes from the night before. When you're big venues like that, it translates easy. Once they EQ the system, your
Right.
mix matches. So he'd set it up. My job was to make sure Johnny's guitar was in tune. So he'd walk out on stage, high five all the band, turn around, look at me. I'd walk out on the front of the stage, a skinny little kid. Hand him his guitar. He'd go blink, blink, blink. When he knew it was ready, he'd high five me. I'd walk off and I'd run out and push the faders on the board there. So
Wow.
very
So
cool.
I mean, what was it? What was the feeling like when you were first doing that? Was it kind of like, oh my God, this is cool, or was there a little bit of oh shit, I might shit my pants, or
No, no,
no?
always loved it.
Hmm.
Always loved it, and I learned a lot. But
So
when Johnny's first tour started, that one was even crazier because they had this small company from Texas that Dick Griffey, who was Solar Records, did the Whispers and Shalimar and all those bands. I got to know him very well back then. He's no longer around, but he hired a sound company from Texas, and these two guys, one guy did monitors, one guy did front of house, and they set it all up, and we're in these 4 or 5 thousand seaters. And I go to the guys, "Hey, this is my first tour. I've never really done this. So, anything you want to tell me or help me with, please feel free." And the guy goes, "We borrowed the money from his grandma to get this sound system so we could bid this. And we've never done this before either. And I go, okay, well, we're going to learn fast. And they had a little trailer and they'd set it up. We played the Circle Star, was probably the smallest one. They had the PA there, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it started. So we had to learn really fast. And then Johnny's sister, who was on tour with us, she'd make notes out there. We'd have to run a cassette every night, and I'd have to give her the cassette, and he'd listen. And he liked what I was doing. Yeah, I
Nice.
worked with him for
So
many, many years. He's a great guy.
I'm going to throw up a couple of pictures
Sure.
here because and you won't be able to see that, but some pictures of some massive uh, next to you here. That I might just go solo on this. There's a big. It almost looks like it's the Fillmore, and I can't say what it is unless I look on your Facebook page. But it's a big show. And then and I like taking those kinds of pictures because or looking at them because I'm kind of a like it's like gear porn, you know. It's like
Yeah,
oh, and that
sure.
right. And then there's another picture here of you standing, and it's for Keiko Matsui, and I'm not sure where it is, but the mixing board looks like it's either an old Midas or Soundcraft analog
Midas. And that
Midas.
was at a college in, I want to say, Michigan. Was at a university.
Mm.
We did that, and that was recently. That was last year.
Really? And they're still using that old Midas.
Yeah,
It,
and they asked me if I want it, and I go, of course I wanted to have the choice, you know. But then again, I put that out there, and a lot of guys go, "That's the crappy Midas stuff.
oh,
What do you want to use that for?" And I go, "Stop, you know, say something nice."
right.
You know,
It looks so cool. I mean, you know,
yeah.
for people that I just like cool pictures. And whenever you see all the knobs and the buttons, you know, it's like it's kind of cool. And
Well, the
then
last analog console I worked on before that was probably 8 years ago. I was with Dave Weckl and Mike Stern. We were in Argentina, and I walk in and I saw one of those consoles, and I go, "Oh, this is going to be great." It was the last show of our tour, so it was like Christmas for me.
really,
This is
and
awesome.
you loved it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, you
Real
know,
fun.
well, now this is going to be I want a question back to the difference between all of those old analog consoles and the new one. Now, you started on analog in the studio and everything, so
Home
it
choice.
kind of easy for you to move into the use the old analog desks. But how was the change shifting into the new digital stuff? Was that fairly easy for you?
Well, theoretically, it works. You know,
Mhm.
I tried to find the easiest board, and you know, when you start with that, you have to go through everything, and trying to learn them in
Mm.
any depth, as you know, takes. Oh God, how do I do this? You know, it's so deep what you need to know just to function. So I went for the one that was most similar to an analog console. For me, and some people disagree, but for me, it was the M7CL by Yamaha. You push a button, and there it is. It's all there.
Mm.
The one that I didn't care for because it took so much to do a simple thing as the digi consoles.
Oh, yeah,
You got to use a mouse and a screen, and I go turn the screen off. It's blinding me. What
yeah.
we need it, you know, if you want to change something, and I'm going, that's ridiculous. And then after I finally figured that out, I didn't really care for the sound of it, and I don't want to knock anybody's gear. I'm sure that console is popular because of the way it integrates with the Pro Tools. So all the
You mean
kids, the
the
digi console,
Avid? Yeah.
yeah,
Um, what about the new S6Ls? Or have you seen worked on those?
no,
Yeah.
no, I
Um,
have.
that you know they're easier than you know having to use the mouse. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
an issue. Yeah, when they first.
My new favorite one is CL5. I just love it, and I'm
Oh
doing
yeah,
some
those
huge,
are
huge
easy.
updates on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
those are really
stupid
easy.
easy. Yeah.
So now I'm going to show a couple of pictures. I'm going to kind of jump around because people like to show pictures. I've got a picture of you with Alex Acuna
Uh-huh.
in your studio. I just pulled a few pictures off of your Facebook to
Uh-huh.
just
Oh, is he
give.
standing on a chair?
I'm not sure. He's hitting it looks like a djembe or a conga. It looks like a
Oh,
djembe, red one. and you're in your studio, I believe.
I
And
can't.
then one I wanted to ask you about. There's a picture here of a concert, and I believe this is the one. And it is no, that's another Keiko Matsui. The one I want to find is it's this one. Okay, now the picture I'm showing, it was 120-piece orchestra in Europe somewhere, and
And yeah,
it,
Tbilisi, Georgia.
what was that like?
Uh, well, at first, I mean, here's a good little background on mixing orchestras. After I sold Sonora to Richard in 1993, I took what I had left was like I didn't make anything on that. That was a schooling. So it's like paid education to have that studio. But after I sold, I went to Europe. My brother was living in Munich then, so I went to visit him and his kids and his wife and stuff. And then I have some friends in Berlin. I had one friend. So I visited with my brother. Then I went to Berlin and visited my friend Joe Ritter. He's from Torrance, but he's a sax player who we used to work a lot. And he said, "Hey, I know this theater that's looking for might need an engineer, and they do musicals. So you have an orchestra and a bunch of characters moving around, sound effects. You got to." I go, "That'd be fun." And I interviewed, and they actually gave me the job. So I started learning about orchestras and such, how it is to work with bigger setups like that and how you do it. And I knew how I learned how instruments sound when I was with Johnny Guitar Watson. I had a room with the trumpet player. I can tell you, I know exactly how a trumpet's supposed to sound because he practiced it all day in the room. So my Europe experience got me working with orchestras, and I did 7 years of Porgy and Bess with the New York Harlem Theater production, and we had about a 80-piece orchestra for every show. We did 9 shows a week, 3 hours, and
Wow.
but it wasn't a big miking. I did area mics and a couple solo mics where I needed an oboe and then a
Mhm.
piano and then a banjo on one. But
Right.
then we were in Helsinki, Finland, and we did a huge 20,000 seater with that. And I had two of those Midas consoles and then a side Soundcraft console, 24 for strings. So if you think about what you need to do, to get back to your question about that orchestra in Tbilisi, and you plan ahead, it's all inputting and assigning channels and getting that all clear ahead of time.
Mm.
So when we did the show in Tbilisi, um, I had a great stage guy working with me, and we came up with this plan. Okay, this mic goes to this person, so we made a seating cards and we put it on first violin, and it matched the mic, so they knew where to sit. The oboe player didn't sit at the cellist seat and such.
Yeah.
And in doing that, it worked perfect. So um, the last big orchestra I did was at the Microsoft in LA for a Persian singer, and we had a 140-piece orchestra and
Jesus.
an 80-piece choir.
Oh my.
And everybody's going, "Oh, what?" And okay, here. And I went, do you know Anti-M Sound, local sound company,
Yeah.
Martin
Yeah.
Clays and his group? Absolutely my favorite. Love those guys. And we went, they're 5 minutes from where I live downtown. So I went over and we made all the place cards and we made the input list and we did everything and we set it up. These two have to have a Y connector. And I
Mm.
had a CL5 completely full and an M7 CL on the side
Mm.
going out in groups. And the reason I used the M7 is because I didn't want to flip pages. I had to see every
Oh,
fader. I didn't have
right.
time to, oh, where's that? So
Right.
I kept it up. And actually, there's a picture of it I put up today on my Instagram
Oh.
to talk about this interview here. And I put that picture of me up there with
Oh.
those two consoles.
Wow.
So back to the one in Tbilisi, Georgia, with Keiko. That was her band. Dave Carasoni on drums, Rico Ballard on bass, and Keiko, and a guitarist from Ukraine. And we went there, and just had everything planned in advance, and okay, this is how it works.
Well,
It's pretty easy.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm loving the stories, and you know, I could talk to you for 3 or 4 hours because I absolutely want to hear all the stories, but I'm going to jump around a little bit because you've done so much live sound and studio sound with people that I admire and respect. I do want to show this one picture. It's a room, and it's a big room, and you've got a guitar player and drums. I believe Gary Novak is on drums, and I'm not sure who else is there. Maybe, um, but I'm only showing that picture because there's a difference in miking techniques. Sometimes when you have a big open room like that, which is the way a lot of people used to record, and then when you go to your home studio and you got everything isolated, there's a little. Do you do things a little differently?
I do. And
Yeah.
I've actually lately even switched up a little. Is that a live thing that you're showing? I can't see,
Well,
unfortunately.
it's a studio shot, and yeah, you can't see it. And I wish that I would have made notes of what it was, but
That's okay.
there's cameras. There's some cameras you're
Oh
filming.
yeah, Travis Carlton, Gary Novak,
Yes,
Mike Miller,
yes, Mike Miller.
Billy Steinway on keys.
Yeah.
All great guys, good friends of mine, and Carl. Sorry, I can't remember right now, on guitar. He played guitar too.
Yeah.
That was over at Clear Lake in Burbank, Burbank near Magnolia, and for an artist named Michael Tinholm, singer who we work with quite a bit. Really great
Mhm.
guy.
And that's beautiful. And then there's another picture, and I love a couple of these shots because the studios, the rooms look way cool. And there's one here, and I already went blank on who it is in the band, but it almost looks like Village Recorders or something. But it's the picture is just cool as hell because
I'm sorry, I can't see it. I
um,
could put my Facebook on my laptop here and see it. Is this on Facebook Live?
yeah, you would be able to see it.
Try that because this might help here. So I'm going to put my glasses on, everybody, because I
And
can't see anymore.
while
Because
I'm doing that, uh, so we're at 40 minutes. I'm just letting you
oh, we
know.
can go. We can go more. Don't worry about it. I'm very happy. I'm enjoying myself. Let's continue.
It is really fun. I'm kind of I love the stories. And
Okay.
in a few minutes, I'll put up a phone number in case somebody wants to call in. There's a couple of people that have said some things and text. Um, do you know Jay Weeks says,
Yes.
I'm enjoying this interview.
I don't see the pictures. Oh,
You don't, it might
J-
show up, they're a little delayed.
yeah. I see a picture of me leaning over a console. Is that the one that was on my?
Not that one. That isn't the one I
That's
have
it.
up yet.
That was in Istanbul, by the way. That console, the most beautiful studio. I couldn't believe it. I'm looking here for your thing.
Facebook page.
Oh, yeah, I'll find it here. Hold on. I will find it, and then we can make proper comments on this.
Yeah.
So I don't. There you are, Facebook Live. Um, we're going down. There you are. Okay, now I can see the picture.
Yeah.
I see a picture. Yeah, so that's the picture behind. It's with me
Yeah.
as my name, and there's Gary and Carl and Travis and Billy in the back, and
Yeah.
Michael Tinholm sitting there smiling because he's very happy because he has these great players, and
So this is
they're
the booth, the control room of the session that we just saw. I'll put that picture back up so you can see that. The
okay.
room, uh,
Oh, then
the room
so
where all the cameras were.
yeah. Oh, there it is. That's Paramount.
Oh, that's Paramount.
Yeah, that's Paramount Recording, their SSL, and that's Mike Garson, who was David Bowie's pianist forever, and he under pressure, that ding 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 da 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 ding
Oh,
ding. That's Mike Garson. That's
okay. And then
Mike Miller and some others.
Yeah, Mike Miller. Then I'm going to show one picture of Brandon just because I know Brandon is a buddy and I've done live sound for him and everything. So I got a picture of Brandon. Uh, I'm not sure if it's your studio that he's in, but I
Was he
put a
doing the
picture of Brandon.
Jethro Tull thing?
Yeah, exactly.
That was my studio. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
doing flute, and he's a alto sax player. He plays everything, of course, and he's a master at everything. But the flute thing is so we wanted to find a little bit of an entertaining photo. So
That was a good one. And then this is the picture you were saying was that you're leaning over. You have um, on your
invite for this.
yeah, on your website.
Yes,
Yeah, is this the one that's in?
it's just kind of spinning there. But the one, is there a guy in the back on my,
Yes,
right? That's in Istanbul. That's a
Sam.
recording studio in Istanbul. I was doing a record for um, Orhan Osman. They call him Bazooki Orhan. And he is a phenomenal, plays bouzouki, and he lives in Istanbul. He's actually Greek. And Dave Weckl and I went over. That was really funny story too. We used to leave LA on Thursday, get to Istanbul on Friday, do a Saturday afternoon TV show, and be back in LA on Sunday night. People go, "What did you do for the weekend?" "Oh, I went to Istanbul and I did." No, I mean, what did you do for the weekend? I went to Istanbul and I'm back now. That's our life on the road, as you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
got to say, I see every like, well, I'm traveling too, and I'm traveling there, and I'm like, man, and there are a lot of one-offs. Like you're going and you're doing a night, and then you're coming back,
yeah,
and but
and far on the other side of the world.
yeah. So
Crazy.
I'm going to put my number up here in case somebody asks questions, but I want to also ask. I want to hear the Steve Gadd story.
How I
Uh,
got the project.
yeah, and then where did you record most of it, and just the you know,
I'll give you some overviews on it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I can start that now while you're putting
Yeah,
your number up.
I'm
The first time I worked with Steve was I saw that he was going to be at Catalina Bar and Grill. Now I'm a freelance. I don't work for the club, but I
mm,
saw he was coming, and so I talked to Manny, who manages, and I said, "Dude, I want to do that, please."
yeah,
The sound guy. So they said, "Okay, well, let me ask Steve if he's bringing someone, but I'll tell him about you." And as soon as he heard I worked with Dave, he said, "Oh, no problem," Steve said. So the band was Steve Gadd and Joe DiFrancesco
mm,
were the band that I worked in. I can't remember the guitarist's name. The sax player I can remember, but we didn't get along, so I won't talk about him. Another story for later. So so I did about three nights with him there, and then Michelle Ito manages Steve now. She wasn't at that time. So when the next record, I heard they're getting ready to do another record. I said, "Man, I'll do anything to get that record." So I said, "This is what I can do for you." And we came up with a deal, and they, "Oh, well, we know you're capable." So I said, "Okay." So I got it. And it wasn't because I sat and waited for the phone to ring. In our business, as
yeah,
you know, you
right,
got to put your foot out there to try and get things in. So
yeah,
that worked. Um, and we recorded it at Landau's house in his garage studio, which is set up very nice. He had a nice little API. We had to rent a bunch of pre's, though he was a little limited on some of those, and
mm,
and it turned out great. We put the B3 in his garden shed outside of Larry Golding's B3, and at night we'd take the cable with it for about a week, well, a little more than a week, and it was pretty funny. So how that worked.
yeah,
It worked really well. It turned out really good. But I remember listening to the Gadabout record that was done before, and I could hear the things that the engineer was doing. He did a decent job. It's a great record.
yeah,
But I say, man, because I know Steve likes the drums really loud and up front. He
mhm,
loves them pushed forward, and I was talking to Steve Smith about that because we were touring at the time with Mike Stern, and I go, Steve, listen to this. What do you think of this? He goes, wow, it's the first time I heard the drums right. And I go, don't you think they're loud? He goes, this is how we drummers hear them. It's Steve
Mhm.
Gadd. It's his record. This is how he wants to hear it. And that I really took that to heart. I go, of course. So okay, so they can't be too loud. But I
Right.
remember hearing on the first record, Gadabout record, where I know Steve said, raise the ride cymbal. And the guy probably had him 4 feet away, like they do. And I go, so he's pulling up that whole side of the kit.
Mm.
All the leakage is coming through, and the whole kit just goes lopsided, and what a mess. And
Right.
so when I went in, I thought about it way in advance exactly how I was going to do it. I close mic'd the cymbals maybe 6, 8 inches apart. All the drums I mic'd how I do the kick, snare, hat,
Mhm.
toms. I had 3 toms, 3 cymbals, so I had 3 overhead mics, and then I had a stereo room mic that I put up to kind of blend it all together so it didn't
Right.
sound too tight. So when Steve said raise the ride cymbal, I was just raising the ride cymbal. I wasn't raising the whole side of the kit ambience. I was just
Mm.
raising the ride cymbal. A little more crash, okay? Very easy. I had complete control over everything. And that's the way I've always done it. I never put the mics too far away. I try and get it for what they are. These are the overheads, not
Right.
the room mics will pick all that stuff up. In my opinion, other guys do it differently.
Well, yeah, well, that was something I wanted to ask you because and my phone number is up there in case anybody's watching wants to ask a question. But the difference, and you're the perfect guy to ask because you live in both worlds. Not every studio guy can do live sound, and not every, I mean, the two worlds are different,
Right.
and there's a few guys that do both, but
Woody
you,
Woodruff, he's one.
who's
Do you
that?
know Woody? He did. He does big bands. He was at Catalina's for a while,
Yeah,
filling
yeah,
in when I got the new system. He's a buddy of
yeah.
mine. He worked on the record. Uh, he I think it won a Grammy. He worked Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole duet
Oh,
that they
right.
took.
Um,
Woody worked on that.
yeah,
He
unforgettable.
subs. Yeah, yeah, he's a great guy. He subs for me occasionally, and then I have another sub who I really
Yeah.
like, and I've never met in person, Bob.
Mm,
He subs for me on gigs. But Woody is a really great studio and live, and as is
mm,
Bob, my other assistant.
mm. Well,
So yeah,
this would be my question then,
sure,
because I see so many guys put their overhead mics way up high, and like you, to my ear, it's like they're serve no purpose other than picking up everything else around it.
yeah,
So I've always wanted to put mics down lower, and those guys that'll come up and look at you like, why are you putting the mic there?
yeah, yeah,
you know, and another thing I did one time is instead of putting an overhead mic, I took a little like a KSM 137 and put
mhm,
it up underneath the cymbal, just almost
yeah.
like, so we're actually getting a phone call. I'm going to assume this may be somebody calling to
So
ask you a question.
your
We'll
pizza's
find
ready.
out. Uh, Hello, you're speaking to Jeff and Dennis. Hello.
Hi. Hey, Dan. It's Samantha.
Hi.
Hey.
Do you,
Do you have a
So
question?
I do. I have two questions. Um, I have known Dan a long time, and he travels really regularly. So I want to know how many countries you have been to, roughly,
That's a good.
in
84.
your travels. What
84.
do you consider the most beautiful venue you've set up in and been to, and the best sounding venue? They may not necessarily be the same.
Okay, I'm going to answer those, and then I'll talk to you later, Samantha. Thank you for the question. The
All right.
best the
Thanks.
the best sounding room I worked at. One of the best sounding rooms was in was is Wembley Arena. Love it when it's full. I've mixed that about 3 or 4 times, and it's incredible when it's full. When it's not full, it can get a little ambient. The next one was a place in Melbourne, Australia. It was actually church, but they do commercial concerts there. It's not a church; it's a church auditorium, and it is. I can't remember the name of the place. Something College. It's phenomenal sound. There's a bunch. If I thought about it, I could probably think of were really good. But the Wembley, I love it, and I also mixed at Royal Albert Hall, and that one's not fun because you're always on the edge of feedback. It's got that big dome over it, and it's like a giant bowl,
Yeah.
and I just go, oh wow, this is not good. If she sings any quieter and I push it, it's going to feed back. But I was watching the vocal level the whole time.
Yeah.
And the country is 84. I'm going to get to 100. It was the last thing I do.
84 countries. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, so
Thank you, Samantha, for that great question, by the way.
and in terms of miking techniques, also, I when you do some of the bigger auditoriums, arenas, do you? Because I do a lot of smaller ones sometimes, and I rarely put front of house in stereo. I mean, I'll do a left and right, but I mean, I'll have guitar players come and we're getting another call, and I'll take the call.
Okay.
Hello, Reed.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You have a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question for Dennis.
Hi,
Do you
Reed.
have any distinct memories of James Jamerson, either personally and or technically?
That was so long ago. Thank you for that question, by the way. No, I don't have any recollection. In fact, it was hard for me to remember who even played on those earlier ones because we were doing 2 to 3 tracking dates a day for Motown, mostly 2. So, they'd be 4-hour sessions. So I do remember Gadsden. I do remember Sonny Burke very well. I remember Eddie Bongo Brown. I remember Freddie Washington. He came in a couple of years later, around 78, I guess. I do remember meeting James Jamerson at NAMM a few years ago and talking to him about that. And we had a little kick on that. I can't remember the other keyboards players' names. I think Joe Sample, though, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I hope that answered your question, Reed. And you had a miking question.
You did.
You have any other questions, Reed?
No, I just wanted to let Dennis know that I met and had dinner with Charles Mingus in a private home in '69.
Wow.
Played with Hal Blaine and Steve Douglas in '92 in the Steve Douglas Band. And you've an amazing legacy of guys. I'm really enjoying the interview, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. See you, Reed.
Bye, Reed.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
So your question about miking.
Right. So I'll have these guys that'll come up and go, I got to have my keyboards in stereo. I kind of get it. But I've had guitar players that I want 2 speakers and I want it in stereo and, and all this sort of thing. And when I'm doing live sound, especially in a smaller room, my feeling is, and panning as well. If I can hear the snare drum, I don't necessarily even put it in the PA. You know what I mean?
Sound reinforcement is what it's called.
Right.
Okay. And this is a great question. Actually, there's like 3 parts to answering this. Right. First one, the big venues. No, I keep them very tight, very tight. I pan things in. Mike Stern had his 2 blackface Fender Twins that I'd mic, and then he had the SPX going through as part of his sound, and we put them in the middle. But when the studio, he wants panned left and right. But in this live, he wants them in the middle. And I go, okay, and I prefer them in the middle, actually. If you're on the left side, you got a ticket way over on the left wall, and there's something over on the right wall, you're not going to hear it. So I keep stuff very tight. I don't know. I think I got on this early because I never saw it. Now I see it everywhere, and I go, wait, I can't be an innovator on this, or maybe I was. But I put front fills on top, on the lip, sitting on there. And I put them 7 feet apart end to end. And people go, that's overkill. You're going to have phasing problems. And I put those on a mono aux post.
Mm-hmm.
And I put at the bigger venues like Wembley or the
Right.
Forums, I'll put the band on the CL5. I'll put the band mix around 12 o'clock, and then I'll put the vocal mix around 3 o'clock. And I'll have them do a sound check, and I'll walk and I'll tell the guy, turn it up or turn it down. And I'll sit in the front seats.
Mm-hmm.
And, on those Persian shows I was doing with those really popular Persian artists, those seats are expensive. They're $1,000 tickets.
Right.
So if you don't hear every word. So I sit there and I tell them up or down. And when I hear her voice blending perfectly, I'm there, and that's it. We do the show. But if you don't put the band in, then you don't hear them because you're below the stage. Also, another thing too is when I'm doing pre-production on those big shows, I ask for a 4-foot stage level, because 5 feet, then it goes above their heads and the people in the front row can't see it. So if I have the choice, I'll order a 4-foot stage.
And that's a good point, because there are times when people will want the stage so high, and it boggles my mind. Why would you want to put anything over 4 feet?
Yeah, 4 foot's perfect.
Yeah.
Sitting audience, a sitting audience. Standing audience, you can do 4.
Yeah.
5. I'm sorry, 5 or even 6, but
yeah,
it's too much. So back to the question about panning. Yeah, I keep it in tight on those. And the front ones, they get it. And you're hearing stuff bouncing all over, so you're still getting a stereo image of it. Keyboards I put left and right because, pretty hard left and right keyboards, because they kind of fill in. Guitar, I pan them in pretty much center. On that drums, I'll put the toms in, but I won't pan them very hard. It's kind of nice when the people hear, they know they're moving, and they go, oh, wow, even if they're in front and they only hear the floor. And I always do this is another thing that I get debates about with people, and this is a matter of preferences. I always do stuff from viewer perspective.
Me too.
I don't do it from drummer perspective.
Right. Yeah.
In the studio too.
Well, yeah, and so when you're mixing in the studio, panning it's a whole different issue, because you need to give depth to everything.
Yes.
So when you're listening, like in headphones, in order to hear the separation, you have to place them, left, right, and stuff like that.
And you do a band like Radiohead where they do left, center, right. There's another, they do huge pannings, and how do you get a blend on that when you're hearing something way over there and something way over there? Is it too loud, or you're hearing it so isolated because it's way out there, you think it's too loud, so you turn it down, and when it goes into mono, it sounds wimpy. There's no guitars or stuff. So I always get my mixes in the studio. I push the mono button, and I get my blends, and then I open it up to stereo, and I go, wow, this is great. This is really cool. It sounds good. No, that guitar is not too loud. I know it's not too loud. Sometimes I pull them back a little though, but also on Pro Tools, there's a selection. You could have -3 center or -1.5 center. And I think mine are set to -3. I think I can put it up to -1.5, where it'll give me less of that extreme outside seeming too loud, because it's sucking it in the middle. So I don't know, something like that.
So in the studio, I've got there's so much questions that back, if I'm not mistaken, I heard that there were, when Steve Gadd was playing with Chick Corea on some of those records back in the, when was that, the 80s, 70s, 80s, that he would tune his drums to specific notes in the song. And I don't know for sure. So, and I know of all of the drummers I listen to, the one guy that has the most impeccable drum sound is Dave Weckl. And I know, so you work with him a lot. Do those guys, when you worked with them, I know Dave just gets great sounds, but is there ever any time when you're in the studio and you actually tune the toms to notes?
We can adjust them, but usually the drummer knows right away. He knows what to do. They're good on the first. My favorite tuning drummer, was the one who really spent a lot of time on it. And I said, well, he's really taking a lot of time on that. But it was Michael White, and he played some Steely Dan things, and love him. And love his playing. He's a really great guy. And he's so impeccable with his tuning. And I go, wow, I hear a little something. And I said, well, I don't think I can hear that in the song. And goes, oh, I'm gonna fix it. And it really makes a difference in the end, to take that time, And then Weckl, of course, has a great kit, it's his Yamaha
Yeah.
Phoenix kit. Can't go wrong.
Right. And there's I did pull up a picture of Weckl and those guys. Oh, my screen froze. Of Weckl and those guys doing getting ready for a show, and you had on your website with Dave and I think Gary Meek again, and they were going to do a show at Catalina. And there's also another show you did at Catalina, and I think I had this up. It was a big band with Lisa Maxwell.
Yes.
And
Dave, Will Lee, all the guys on that.
Oh my God. It's like, all the guys, Chuck Findlay,
Carl.
Carl Saunders.
Love him. He's a great guy. We get along great, me and Carl.
Yeah.
And people go, God, he's so difficult to work with sometimes. No, he's not. He loved me. I was doing Phil Norman's big band Tentat record over at Sunset Sound, and Carl they go, he's grumpy. And I go, but me and him just clicked, and we had a really good time. He goes, okay, I see you know what you're doing. I'm going to give you a break. But
Mitch Foreman was on that gig, and I just had interviewed him, and what a brilliant guy that he is, and such a nice guy.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite pianists. I use him whenever I can. Between him and Billy Steinway and Kim Hansen, those guys I use. There's others too, but those guys are the guys I call. I used to work a lot with Kim and Billy. I work with a lot, and we did quite a few different records together. And then Mitch is so classical. We just did a record last year that's just phenomenal, and he was reading. Actually, it was really funny because we had Will Phillips on percussion, J.P. Moraro, who's Keiko's guitarist, on acoustic guitar, Jimmy Johnson on bass, and Mitch was going to play piano. And Kim Angelis, she's a violinist, kind of hippie folky music, real great stuff, kind of quirky but beautiful playing and great composition.
Yeah.
And Mitch got the date wrong because we changed it, and he didn't get the memo. So, Mitch, where are you? So he goes, I can't come today, come tomorrow and overdub. So, okay, best we can do. So we cut the tracks, and everybody's very flexible. He came in, and this is some real hard stuff. It's not simple stuff. It's almost classical. And he just nailed it. I listened to that CD, and I go, God, that guy's unbelievable.
How's he do it? I know.
Yeah, how does he do it? It's just what he does.
Right. Well, and this was something I didn't know about him when I asked him the question, how'd you get started and all that stuff. And he said, well, back in the late 70s, 80s, he was, doing sessions in New York with Steve Gadd and, and Richard T and all those guys. And he was in that group of doing all those jingles. And
he's probably 25 years old.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like 24,
Yeah, 24. Amazing, huh? Yeah, that's amazing. But I noticed I did a record. We edited a bunch of stuff he recorded at home on his piano for Walt Fowler. For Michelle Ito's grandfather wrote a bunch of music for ballet. And Walt and I had to edit it. And Mitch played all the parts. We had to create all these little pieces that Mitch played into the piece of the music. And I go, my God, this guy's as good as any classical pianist up there. Mitch, if you're listening, you owe me $1. No, I'm just kidding. He's great. He's just phenomenal.
He's such a great guy, man.
Definitely so.
So we've been at an hour and 4 minutes.
We can keep going. Yeah.
Okay, but it is 9:15 though, because we started.
Let's give another 20 and see what happens. I do have an errand to run for you, but I'm okay. This is fun. Okay.
So I wanted to ask you a question about I've lost my train of thought. But you wanted to tell a story, and something that I think that I wanted to hear that about you've never been late.
Never
And
been late.
you've never been late. You said you've never been late, and there was a
Ah,
story about that. Um, but so of all of these gigs and all of the traveling and all of this
oh,
stuff,
yeah, the story.
yeah,
Okay. This is back in 1977, Johnny Guitar Watson band, you two in a room, horrible pay, but back then it was decent, I think they're paying us 200 a week back then. That's what the pay was back then for a sound guy. We're playing at Carnegie Hall, Johnny Guitar Watson, right? So me and the trumpet player were rooming. We had room. He says, I go, Gene, he goes, I'm going to go for a walk. You want to go look around New York City? And I go, no, I'm really tired. We just came in that morning from a drive somewhere. I'm going to take a nap. When you come back, wake me up and I'll go over to the venue with you. So I wake up. It's dark. I go, where's Gene? I look at my clock and it was like 10 minutes before showtime.
oh
And I
no,
go, oh my God. I run out, I grab a cab, I go, it's urgent. I go, here's $20, just get me up there. It's up the 7 blocks up the
yeah,
street, New York, Friday night. And the thing with Carnegie Hall is such a strict union, you couldn't even bring your guitar cases in. Back then, I don't know if it's loosened up. They had a guy, you handed him guitar on the sidewalk, he brought it into the building. You couldn't touch anything. So I run in, I see the band's just walking. I say, Johnny's on the stage looking, has his cable, trying to plug it in. The band's hitting. I walk in, the manager, the road manager's back there. He looked at me and he said, what happened? I go, Gene didn't wake me up, and I know it's my fault. I'm sorry. He goes, you owe me one. I won't say anything about this. Right. So we go, we do the show, and Johnny goes, what happened? I go, union, man. They wouldn't let me touch anything. I'm sorry. I couldn't even go on the stage. That was
oh,
my late, and I actually got there on time, but that was my close call. And that's it.
yeah,
But I don't know why I'm always that. Just because I care, I guess. I try to be
yeah.
prompt.
Yeah, I can't be late either. I mean, it just bugs me. Yeah.
Yeah, me
Uh,
too.
I'm trying, my screen on my little switcher thing froze up and I can't pull up any more pictures. But now you use in your studio though, you use Pro Tools.
Yes.
And then I saw next to it, what's the you have a Mackie.
I have a Mackie 24/8 input console, which got me started. I bought it at Coast Recorders for $1,000 with the meter bridge, maybe 1,200, and that thing has paid itself 10 times over easy.
And you still use it.
I use it on things, but about 7 or 8 years ago, I said I'm going to invest some money in some stuff. Everybody wants APIs, GMLs. Okay, I bought some side racks and I
Mm,
filled them up. I have a 4 GML mic pre's 80. I can't remember what they are, 8012s or something. Then I have. I love at Sunset. So I started on an API at Paramount. We had an API upstairs,
mhm,
so the sound of those I just am in love with. So I was over at Sunset Sound, and we're doing Dave Weckles' acoustic band record over there, and I go, oh my God, this is the best sounding API I've ever heard. This is phenomenal. I love this. And they go, oh, we modify them. And I go, wow, I wish I could get some of those. Oh, no, we manufacture them. We sell them. So I bought 4 of those. They're called Tutti, Sunset Sound Tutti, Tutti, mic pre's, and they're basically APIs modified. And I just love the sound of them. They have a little more headroom and openness than the 512s have, and I just absolutely love those. So I have 4 of those, and then I have 2 550As that I use on kick and snare, and then I have 4 550Bs, which are the 4-band versions
mm,
of API EQs, and that's all in a rack
mhm,
with a patch bay and all that stuff. So I use that. Then when I run out of room, I'll put like the room mics in my studio. I'll put those through the Mackie.
mhm.
I'll put some peripherals through the Mackie, little stuff. But
So
but people, oh, go ahead. Good.
I was going to say, so do you track a lot of drums there?
Yes, I've had every drummer in there. In fact, it's unfortunate that this happened because we are going to do. Vinny was going to come in July and do some do a record for 4 days with a friend of mine from Germany who's a guitarist who's quite talented, and he wanted to get Vinny, and I said, well, let me call him up and see if he'll do it. And it
Yeah.
just happened that he could. And now with all this, I don't know.
Have you worked with Vinny before?
All the time. Used to work
Yeah.
with back in the days, all the time. Before 2000, we used to work all the time. Before I moved to Europe in the 90s, after I sold Sonora, I told you I went to Berlin. I stayed there
Right.
8 years doing those musicals. And
Yeah.
I used to work with Vinny all the time. We used to hang out, but it's you get older, you go different ways.
Yeah.
You don't see
Yeah.
other people that much. But I was really excited about having the session. I hope we can redeem it and reschedule it here for maybe August or so.
Yeah. So
Really great.
who because I'm a drummer, right? So you've already listed 3 of the main drummers I've ever listened to. I mean, from Weckl and Gadd and Vinny. I mean, who else is there really?
Well, there's Gadsden, who we love because of his style, and then you've got Picaro. I did a session for him.
Right.
That was a funny session. That was a Motown session for Jermaine Jackson, Hal Davis producing, and I was the assistant on it. But at that point, Cy Mitchell he'd show up 10 minutes after the date. I'd already have everything set up, so I was pretty much doing it, which is the reason I finally became Hal's engineer for about 4 years. But Picaro came in. They're always late. All the musicians, if it was a 10 a.m. hit, they'd come in at 2 minutes before 10. So Jeff came in at 9 a.m. and I go, wow, he's early. He goes, hey, I've never worked for these guys before. Can you tell me a little about them? And Hal Davis. And I go, you like to drink? Because they drank a lot. And we talked and chatted, and I don't remember much about it. It was quite a while ago, but I got to work with them, and I put all the mics up and dialed it in. The side came in and said, sounds good, just get me some coffee. And they did the session. I can't remember. I thought the song was called C'est la vie, but I couldn't find it online. So I got to work with Jeff, Michael White, love him, Oscar Seaton. The list goes on and on. I can't really just pick one drummer.
Is the Michael White where you're thinking of? Because the Michael White that I'm thinking of is a cousin to Verdine and Maurice White.
I don't know. Chicago.
He's from Chicago. He played drums with Lou Rawls.
No, that's Kenny Elliott. Plays drums with Lou Rawls. Oh, maybe way back.
Way back when he was a kid.
Michael. I don't know, because he played with Maze, that band Maze, Maze, forever, and he played with Steely Dan. He played with what's his name from Steely Dan, solo, one of the solo ones. He did the.
I think I met him at a drum shop in Chicago back in like 80 or something. He was a kid.
He lives in LA now, over in Simi, not Simi, Sylmar area, and he's got a studio in his house. And that's a funny story I want to tell you, because this goes back consoles. I have my Mackie console. Mackie console? What are you going to do with that? I'm going to get your drum sound in 3 minutes, and you're going to go, holy crap. So Michael and I, this is funny. He said, hey, I got this room in my garage. I put together this little studio, and I'm starting to get some jobs. I got these mics, and I need to record this. So I go over to his place. I got these preamps. He had like 2. I can't remember what they are, but Neve copies for the kick and snare, no EQ. And I go, what about the rest? And so we went down to Guitar Center, and we picked up a Mackie 12.8 or 12.4 direct out, smallest one with direct outs. Maybe it was a 16.8 or something like that. It was a $300 console. Right. We go back and we set it all up, and we get a sound, and he records it. And the thing, it turned out it's an Al Jarreau, George Benson Al Jarreau song, Morning, and it won a Grammy. It won a Grammy, and we did it on a $300 Mackie console, the drums. And people say, you can't make records on those. And I go, okay, won a Grammy. How's that?
It was Morning, Al Jarreau Morning?
Al Jarreau and George Benson duet record that they did. And
Right.
everybody's trying to get on that record. That was big. They were recording. God, how am I going to get on that record? You know, I got to make some calls, see if I can get on. And Michael called me and said, "Hey, guess what? It made the cut."
Yeah.
So that's how we did it. You know, I was trying to get on it too. And Ricky Lawson was on it. I was Ricky's engineer too for a long time.
Yeah. And did you do some things with the Yellow Jackets and those guys then? Or
Yeah, I did, but you know, it wasn't for them. It was them doing back a Marilyn Scott record they did at Sonora. So I worked with them there, and Jimmy and Ricky, I've known since, geez, forever. Since I was probably 25. Since I met Jimmy and Ricky, and they were on Flora's tour, the one I got cut off on in 1977. It
whoa.
was Ricky on drums, Jimmy on bass, Hugo Fataruso, keyboard player from Uruguay, on keys, and then guitar. I don't remember. Jeff, I can't remember his last name. I see him around at Baked Potato all the time. He was on guitar, and Flora and Airto. And that was that tour. But Ricky and Jimmy were on that tour before, you know, the Yellow Jackets even were.
Yeah.
That's how far back I know them. So,
So
I've worked with them a lot, but I think it was for Marilyn Scott's record. I did it, and I did some, and the other engineer, they had a couple different engineers coming in.
So in those days, when you're floating around and you're working with the guys and doing different records, do you, as a recording engineer, you know, I know how musicians are. They're saying, right, hey, I hear so and so is doing a record. Can I get you? You want to play drums on it, or you want to play guitar? Did that same sort of thing happen with recording engineers, where you'd hear about a record and people are going to record it? The same as musicians talk. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. Networking, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
covering each other's back, you know, for that. Yeah, we got a little of that, you know, but the musician thing was funny. I remember Wawa Watson walking into the George Duke session. Wawa was downstairs, and he came in with his guitar and his little amp, and he goes, "I'm going to play this part. Stop. I'll pay for the next half hour of studio time it's going to take me to do this. 15 minutes. I'm going to play this part, and if you don't like it, take it off and then keep working. It doesn't cost you a penny to do it." And Wawa was a very, very assertive guy. And George, everyone, "Oh, who's this guy? Holy shit!" And he came in and it made the record.
Really?
So, yeah. And so he got me gigs. Gadsden gets me gigs. Sometimes he calls me. We do these Motown. They want the Motown drum sound, so he calls me, and we do that.
And what do you do different in recording techniques or sounds or anything to do a Motown sound?
Well, very dead room to start
Mhm.
with. The rooms that we use are very dead. Mic selections will be different. I love condenser mics on tom toms, and I use condensers all around. But I use an RE20 on the kick drum. I'll use 57 on the snare. I'll use a KM84, old KM84, not KM84, on the hi hat, and then there's 57s on the toms. And overheads, I'll use 87s, and it's dead. It's a dead sound. Oh, on the hi hat, I'm sorry, it wasn't a KM84. I use RE15. You remember that? It's kind of like a RE20, but actually, I just bought two of them. I'm going to show you one.
Yeah.
30 seconds. 10 seconds. I'll be right back. I got it right here. Okay, I just bought these on eBay. I mean, from somewhere. Can you see that?
Yes. Oh,
this is an RE10, but it looks like an RE15. I bought two of these for 180 bucks, I think, and they're old vintage. These are from the 70s.
Yeah.
But I got two of these. We put these on the hi-hat. This was what Cy Mitchell used to do. He'd put these on the hi-hat about an inch away from the bell when it was open, you know, and to get isolation. And it was trashy. It sounded trashy and distorted and crunchy. That's the sound. And I remember Gadsden and I doing something for a guy named Little Berg, or Little Bird, is a rap guy. And James came in the drums, and we went to the place. It's Audio Effects Studio. It used to be. It used to be J. It used to be something else. It's in a house out in the
Yeah,
valley.
it's a LAX.
LAFX.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have an API room in there. So we went in there and we found the API room. We
Mhm.
called and booked it. They had their own engineer. I just had to get this drum sound. So I go, okay, well, Gadsden, they're bringing his drums in. Some guy, friend of his, said, well, this is where we do drums. I go, no, we're going to do it in there. I go, no one does drums in there. And I go, I'm going to do that. And they go, what do you want for the mics? And they go, that's odd. And got up there and well, Gadsden's half the sound on that. It's not, I mean, I did my part, but
Right.
they go, oh my God, it sounds like 1975 again. And I go, that's what we're trying to get, you know?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
different than having an ambient room where the sound bounces around a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm fascinated by the sound of the hi-hat being kind of trashy sounding.
Yeah, yeah.
And most people would maybe think, God, how it's bugging me. We need to make it cleaner.
That's
But
the
it's
reason right there, about that far from the bell and the up position, and it just.
oh,
And,
oh man. So so we're at an hour and 20 minutes. It's
10 more. 10 more.
okay.
You got 10 more? I'm having fun. Sorry.
Do 10 more. We'll
There's a
go.
lot of stuff to talk about still, isn't there?
There is. So um, uh, I want to find out more about the tours you do with Keiko Matsui and that, because you go all over with those guys and Oingo Boingo.
Oingo Boingo former members. Now, I have to tell you
Oh,
about that. It
okay.
was an Oingo Boingo dance party, which was 8 of the original guys and 7, maybe 6 now. And Oingo Boingo dance party. Everybody thought they were a cover band, and they're competing with cover bands, but they're the real band. Well, of course, Danny Elfman and probably 3 or 4 other guys on there, but Sam Phibbs is in there, and John Avila and John Hernandez and Carl on keys and Steve Bartek on guitar. I mean, those are original guys.
Mhm.
Of course, they have a different singer now who's just unbelievable. Brendan McEwen is his name, and the guy is just phenomenal. We've actually done some recording, and I'm kind of working on those tracks now, but all covers
Yeah.
of the original band. So they changed it to Oingo Boingo former members, so it's very clear that we're not a cover band. We're not competing against the other cover bands. We are the band. So it's
Right.
really fun with them. And the reason I like them, working with them, number one, they let me do my thing. They don't tell me how to do it or what they want. They let me do it, and in return, I do it what they want. You know, I get it cranking for them. You know,
Mhm.
they're a lot of fun. You know, a lot of fun to work with. My favorite show to do.
Yeah.
So
And the kind of venues that you do are they smaller? Are they people that get ruckusy? And I'm
they
guessing.
go crazy. Yeah, yeah, they go crazy. We do the Coach House. We do all the Canyon Clubs. We do. We did a big one, and the last show we did before all this happened was, where do we do? Oh, we did one on the 2nd of January at the Canyon Club in Santa Clarita. But before that, we did one in Phoenix, and they hadn't played in Phoenix. And we did the Celebrity Theater, which is a big round thing with the stage turn. But because they weren't sure how it was going to do, they cut the turning of the stage, and then they only sell the front part.
Mm, mm,
Phenomenal. It was one of the best shows we ever did. You know, it was
really?
just so great. The people just were so grateful, the audience, and we had a great time. And we do Humphreys too. That's a big venue. We do that every October. That's thousands of people and a lot of
Wow.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
a lot of fun.
And that's a lot different than Keiko Matsui, though.
Yes, yeah, Keiko. Well, with Keiko's band, this is interesting because I have my own band. I've known Keiko since mid '80s.
Mm,
I've worked on a bunch of her records, a few of her records, and she's got 40 albums out, I believe. She's got 29 albums out, and each one is more phenomenal than the last one. And the last one, she got very experimental, and she did a little more fusion-y. She had
mhm.
Vinny was on it, Jimmy Johnson was on it, and then she did some stuff with her band. I didn't work on that record, but
Mm.
It's a great record. And she, with her band, she had Jimmy Brandley on drums, who I love. He's incredible. He's from Cuba. Do you know Jimmy? He plays with the Colin Hay Men at Work also. But
Oh,
Jimmy,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So we're playing these smaller places. He plays. He plays with some power. You know, he's not.
Mhm.
He's not the quiet drummer, and he's not overly loud. But I go, I don't need to mic the toms. This is really funny because then I do kick, snare, hat, and the only reason I do the hi hat is so she can have it in her monitor on the other side of the stage. Otherwise, I wouldn't do hi hat. I do one mic in the middle of the kit to pick up the rack toms and the cymbals, and I do one from the side to pick up the floor tom and the right. That's it. I have five mics on him, and it's
Yeah,
perfect. Sometimes I don't even need the overheads.
yeah. I also sometimes I'm wondering. Uh, I put depending on if the drums need to be loud or not and how they play. I position the snare mic so it's in between the hat to pick
Exactly.
the things up.
Yeah. I was going to do that, but she needed it for her monitor. She just wants hi hat in her monitor. That's all she has is
Right.
her piano or keyboards, and she doesn't have anything. If we have a guest, actually, we have a show scheduled for August, and I hope it happens. It's with Randy Brecker, and it's going to be in it in Orange County. It's going to be a big show. Randy Brecker, Brandon Fields, her band,
Hmm.
and some other guests, and I'm really looking forward to that one. But
Yeah. Well, right now, everything I have has been canceled, and
yeah,
it's why I'm doing this, and the gigs are rescheduled right now, in August,
yeah,
and I'm being optimistic that they'll come back, but
yeah. I don't think so. I think
yeah,
we're up until next year. But in the meantime, we have to figure out what to do. So
right.
glad
Well,
you're doing this. This is
yeah,
great.
exactly, and which bring a couple more questions. So,
Sure.
uh, because a lot of my gigs are with I'm just thrown out on bands who don't know me, right? And I'll do some of those miking techniques, and I'll have guys look at me funny, like, "Why don't you put a mic on the hi hat?" I'm like, "Eat it."
I have one for you.
Okay, I will.
Kofi Baker, phenomenal drummer, Ginger Baker's son. He did his cream tribute. Rick Fiorabracci on bass. I can't remember the guitarist's name. We're at the Baked Potato. We had 8 toms. He goes, here's my tom mics. I go, you're kidding. We're not going to mic the toms in here. He goes, yeah, we're going to mic them. So I mic'd all the tom mics. And of course, I put them in, but I didn't put them in much. But I go, why? You don't
Right.
need overheads there. You don't need anything there. But
Yeah.
yeah. I don't really get any flack from anybody if I do it my way. The big orchestra date I did at Microsoft with the 140 piece orchestra and the 80 piece choir, we put 5 drums on the mic for that, and it was perfect. It
Really?
worked perfect. Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
what did you do for the choir? Uh, I always have had issues personally in some of those big halls with a choir,
Yep.
and you can't get the mics into around them, and uh,
Well, they were on the back row. So here's the step. That's a low step. This is the audience. You're the audience. And
right.
then they stepped up. And on the back row was the choir. And
Mhm.
they came up the side and they sang in the back. We put 8 SM81s up, 8 of them. And we pointed them kind of up, and up high and down at the mic. Then it rolled off all the low end of them so it
Mhm.
wouldn't squeal. And I was able to get them way up there. It was pretty good. I was actually surprised. I go, how am I gonna get? And they got louder, and I kept turning it up, and there was no feedback. Okay, I keep pushing, and people were just,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah,
god, the best sound they ever heard. Even the people from Microsoft, I want to pat my own back, but I look back, and there's like 4 guys, and they go, "What did you do?" And I go, "What?" He go, "How come it never sounds like that here? And we're getting a new system." And I go, "Well, I'm available."
so how many so this is a question people will ask me. They'll say, well, how many mics per member? Like, if there was like 20 people and you had 8 mics, how would you kind of
Well,
disperse?
there were 60 or 80 people on this one. So they just kind of just put them up. We just put them up, and I couldn't even see it so far back. It's a big
Mm,
venue, and I couldn't really tell. So I just pushed them up.
yeah.
It
Well,
worked. Spread them out. But with the studio recording, we'll have the bass voices, the the tenor, the alto, the soprano, and they'll mic them like that, and they'll put them around. If I'm doing a choir in a big studio, I'll just mic them, and they'll go around the mic. I'll put up an 87. Sometimes I'll put up
Right.
2 for each group, so I get the basses separated like that.
Right.
And
Right.
then a room mic too to more
You,
questions. I hear 'em.
well, he's super cool.
Oh,
No, they're just appreciating the interview,
oh,
the
great. Okay,
yeah.
very good.
No,
We
so
could go on forever. This is
I
really fun.
I know.
You got any closer questions you want to ask me?
Okay, so these are the kind of questions that people that wouldn't want to know about specific miking techniques and those sorts of things. Oh, well, just one
Sure.
school of thought though on mics, and I'm guessing that you're like this too, especially when you go out with Keiko and some different groups, you'll give your input list and your miking preferences.
But I'll bring my piano mics for her. I'll bring my own piano mics.
And what do you use?
That's pretty funny. Actually, I use a Barkus Berry pickup
Really?
that I stick in there to get just the core of the sound, but I don't use very much of it, and it doesn't go on the monitors at all. I got Ricky Lawson when the SM98s and the Beta 98s come out. He got the 98s. He got the Beta 98s, and he had 4 of the SM98s. And he goes, "Man, I wish I could get some more of these Beta 98s." And I go, "I'll trade you. I got 4 Beta 98s. I'll take the SM. The SM to me are better mics." So I took 2 of them off. I was using DPA 4088s,
Yeah,
the
48.
magnetic ones. When I was doing Russell Ferrante's stuff we did a bunch of live stuff, I'd use those. And I go, well, I want to buy some of those. I go, wait, I already have these. Wonder if these will work. So I took them off and I taped them onto coat hanger wire with gaffer's tape. And I put them on the piano and used them. And I go, God, those things work great. And they reject about 10% more drums. I can turn them up much higher without feeding back and without getting the drums bleeding.
And you have the lid of the piano up.
I closed the lid with her.
Okay.
We closed the lid. So I got those. Then I had my tech, Andre. He took them and we rubberized the coat hangers so they wouldn't stick. And you can't put gaffer's tape on a piano because they'll kill you. So he wired them. He made them all proper. And then I got some of that blue painter's tape and I set them down and I put the tape on them and run the cables out the back with the Barkus. And I have 3 channels. And I keep the high kind of in the middle and but maybe 1 o'clock and I pan the low around 10 o'clock and then the Barkus put in the center. And when the band really starts beating, if I can't hear solo, I'll just push the Barkus up because they're kind of thin and grady and they'll cut right through.
Right. Yeah. Because on a piano, it can get muddy if you don't turn it. Yeah. When you start turning it up. Yeah. So I get caught in hearing your answer, then I forget the next question.
You have some non-miking questions coming up next that people might want to know about.
Yeah. So like the one lady who has known you for a long time. What's your?
She helped me build Sonora. She's probably back then. She's a friend of mine. I was much younger then, and her and another friend, Steve Fowler, who was one of the Fowler brothers. Right. Steve's son Matt, and Steve passed away. He was one of my great friends, but Matt and her put the floor in at Sonora. I think they're probably 17, and we need some kids from some work. I go, here, take all these and glue them down. And she was one of my friends, Samantha. Yeah. And Matt, they put the whole floor, and then I had a guy come in and cut in the edges, and it was done and looked beautiful. Right. Still does.
So, okay. So from the standpoint of people asking that, kind of question, like in the audience, what's your favorite venue, your favorite artist, or the most, I always going to go, well, what was your favorite drum recording or cool thing you did? A couple of just highlight, just favorite artist.
My favorite venue was mixing Gershwin's Porgy Bess with the 90-piece orchestra and the 80-piece choir and 16 leads, sound effects in Helsinki, Finland, in this 20,000-seat Hartwall Arena. That was phenomenal. And there was no digital then. You didn't flip a page. You had consoles from, and a chair with wheels on it. So
How many channels were you running?
then I was probably doing 240 and 96 plus 24.
So the desk had to be like,
I had two desks, two 248 consoles. I think maybe I had one was 64 and one was smaller, and then a side 24 console that I did the high strings on.
mm,
Yeah, and I
and you
think
needed a car to get to the other end.
I had a chair with wheels on it. It was really funny. That
Yeah.
was my favorite show. And then I had all the voices. I had to mix all the voices too. And because it's such a big venue, some of the peripherals that I was able to get spot mics, or you kind of hear them one or two words, you couldn't let those slide or it would ruin the story. So I had to mix constantly moving faders and getting one line up. So you had to know the show perfectly. So we spent a month in Oslo, Norway before that, and then we flew to Helsinki to do this one big show. And so I was really on it. I used to, well, when I first did it, when I was living in Germany, I lived in Berlin for close to 7, 8 years in the 90s. I could leave the bar from the night before and go home, take a shower, and drink some coffee, and then mix a matinee. It was no problem. I can't do that anymore. I don't do that.
Wow.
No
But
more.
that still sounds, I mean, I think that was the picture that I had shown, right? The one picture of Helsinki. Was that?
No, that was probably something else. That was Tbilisi, Georgia, or the Microsoft big
Right.
orchestra.
And so then your favorite recording session.
Boy, I have to think about that. Well, always fun to work with Dave because they push it. Mike Stern, we did over there. We had a little bit of headphone issues, so I won't say where it was, but that was fun because such great talented people. Richard Bona was on bass, Mike, Bob Franceschini, and Dave Weckel. That was fun. Oh, I recorded a live thing. That was really fun. So they were doing the show at the Huntington Harford, which is now the Montalban Theater. So I had to record it. So I had my own little room off the side of the stage. It was with Eric Idle, Eddie Izzard, Tim Rice, who played Rocky Horror Show,
right?
Picture Show, Jane Leaves, Tracy Ullman, and the Screaming Scottish guy, Conley.
I don't remember.
He's a really loud Scottish comedian. That was great. Yeah, because they'd all come into the room where I was recording it and the breaks and in between their scenes, and it was a a show I was recording for them. It was pretty fun.
And they come in and mess with you, during their
They're
breaks.
pretty good. Yeah, they left me alone pretty much. They're all funny guys, but to hear those stories, go, man.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
so Dennis, we're at an hour, almost hour, 40 minutes.
Wow.
We've had a solid group of 6 people that have stayed the entire time.
Oh, great. Very nice. Well, thank you, all 6 of you. I appreciate it.
I mean, there's been people coming in and out, but
they missed all the fun.
right. But this has been great. We can almost do another one another time and ask more.
In a couple of weeks. So I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Right. So I'll thank you, and I'll do my usual closeout thing. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk soon.
All right. I'll talk to you later. I'm going to flip this down now. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. That sounds
Bye,
good.
everybody. Talk to you later.
Bye.